But no matter what the fuck was going on with me, I couldn't be depressed. America don't give a about a tragedy. We are the
The only thing that you can count on is your God and yourself. And only half of that.
It started with a boy who chose freedom over fear. At just 13, Katt Williams, still known as Micah Sierra Williams, made a decision that most adults wouldn't survive. He left behind everything he knew, not because he wanted to chase fame, but because staying home meant losing himself completely. In that moment, under the Florida night sky, he wasn't running away from his parents. He was running towards something bigger: freedom, control, maybe even destiny. He didn't have a plan, just a backpack, a dog, and a mind too sharp for his age. Most kids were learning algebra. He was learning survival. The streets became his classroom, and pain became his teacher. And that's where the story of America's most brilliant, misunderstood comedian truly begins. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Because before the fame, before the chaos, and long before the headlines about arrests and breakdowns, there was a little boy sleeping in a park, believing that maybe God hadn't forgotten him yet. But as we'll soon see, that faith would be tested again and again, until it almost broke him. Because what started as survival would eventually turn into self-destruction.
It was a confusing time, but yeah, I had a childhood. I was grown, but I at 5 years old, I was in front of 10,000 people giving a performance.
Katt Williams built an empire on pain, but behind that laughter was a man quietly breaking. He wasn't just fighting the industry, he was fighting the silence that comes after fame. No safety net, no "are you okay" texts, no backup plan. Because when your comedy becomes your therapy, what happens when the laughter fades? Every punchline came from a scar, every standing ovation, a bandage on the wounds nobody saw. And the truth? Hollywood never cared. They sold his pain, packaged it as entertainment, and called it genius.
I'm just going to go ahead and announce my retirement from stand-up. I'm kind of done. This is...
Imagine being 13 with nothing but a dream, no roof, no food, no plan, just raw determination and a joke. That's how Katt Williams started. No manager, no family, no record deal. Just a broken kid trying to fix himself through laughter. He slept in parks so he could perform under the lights the next day. And when the world called him crazy, he smiled, because madness was his armor. It wasn't fame he wanted. It was freedom. Freedom from pain, from struggle, from being invisible.
I love to read. I was voracious because they told me when I was young that knowledge was powerful. That knowledge was power, and I had studied powerful people.
They laughed with him, but they never heard him. That's the cruel irony of fame. The louder the crowd gets, the lonelier it becomes. By 2006, Katt was finally making money, finally being seen. But the cost? Sleep deprivation, lawsuits, backstage breakdowns nobody talked about. And every time he tried to speak truth, Hollywood labeled him unstable. But those headlines weren't just stories, they were symptoms. Because when a man spends years turning pain into laughter, eventually, that pain starts laughing back.
Jesus left home at 13, so I didn't feel like I was out of pocket in any...
He wasn't crazy, he was honest. And honesty has always been dangerous in Hollywood. When Katt started calling out the machine, they called him paranoid. When he refused to play by their rules, they said he was self-destructive. But behind the cameras, he was just a man begging to be understood. You could see it in his reflection, the pain of being misunderstood by millions. He didn't need sympathy. He needed someone to say, "You're not alone." But in an industry built on masks, being real became his biggest sin.
I probably read 10,000 books at that period in my life.
That's when the war began, Katt versus the system. Not a war with guns or fists, but with silence, whispers, and reputation. The same media that once praised his genius now painted him as unstable. Every joke became evidence, every outburst a headline. And Hollywood? They loved to build you up just to watch you crumble. They said he fell off. But the truth is, Katt Williams didn't fall. He was pushed by greed, by betrayal, by an industry that eats its own and calls it entertainment.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure.
That line hit like a confession. You could hear years of betrayal bleeding through every word. Katt wasn't just talking about friends. He was talking about an entire industry that pretends to care until you're no longer profitable. In the early 2000s, he was surrounded by people, managers, promoters, comedians who called him family. But when things got dark, that family disappeared overnight. No phone calls, no check-ins, no support. And that's when it clicked. Hollywood doesn't care about your truth. It only cares about your moment. Once your moment fades, so do they. But what makes Katt different is that he didn't fade quietly. He kept speaking, and every time he did, he exposed something they didn't want to talk about. Because in a world full of fake smiles and empty promises, Katt Williams stayed real.
See, the thing is, we just opened up around here, you know what I'm saying? And we've been having some problems, obviously, as you see. I appreciate what...
That moment sent chills through the crowd and through the internet. Because when Katt said Hollywood demons, he wasn't just being metaphorical. He was talking about the invisible forces that control careers, crush individuality, and rewrite stories to keep certain people in power. People laughed at first, but then they started remembering things. The sudden disappearances, the mental breakdowns, the arrests that didn't make sense, patterns, the kind Katt had been calling out for years. It's one thing when a YouTuber says Hollywood is corrupt. It's another when a man who lived it says it from the stage, in front of thousands, and that's when the laughter stopped. Because suddenly, everyone realized maybe Katt wasn't joking anymore.
The kind of song when you walk into the Slauson swap meet with $400, and you know not only can you buy anything you want, bitch, you can buy.
That night became the headline they wanted. Katt Williams arrested again. No context, no explanation, just another frame in a long-running story designed to make him look unstable. But what the public didn't see was what led up to it. The canceled gigs, the setup encounters, the so-called friends who tipped off TMZ before the cops even arrived. This wasn't chaos, it was choreography. Every time Katt tried to pull back the curtain, something mysterious happened. A new arrest, a lawsuit, a leaked video, and each one chipped away at his reputation. The irony? Hollywood celebrates rebellion until the rebel story stops benefiting them. So when Katt refused to play the game, the industry made sure he became the example, the warning sign for anyone else thinking about crossing the line. But what they didn't expect was how far Katt was willing to go to expose the truth.
Why is America that strong? Because of all of us that's in the room tonight. Not because white people are better or Hispanics are better, because blacks are better. No, nobody. We all are the same.
That silence in the studio said everything. Katt wasn't yelling. He wasn't ranting. He was done. For years, people mistook his passion for anger. They mistook his boundaries for arrogance. But when you've been lied about long enough, truth starts to sound like aggression. What Katt was really saying was simple. He was tired of the masks, the manipulation, the fake smiles after betrayal. He'd seen too much, survived too much, and realized that peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real. And that's something Hollywood can't monetize. But this moment wasn't just about defiance. It was about freedom. And once Katt stopped pretending, his career and his message took a turn nobody saw coming.
They say this is the best medicine ever, and then 3 months later, you hear this quiet-ass commercial. Have you or one of your loved...
And that's the part most people missed. Katt was never just a comedian. He was a messenger wrapped in a clown suit, turning pain into punchlines, truth into laughter. The same people who praised Dave Chappelle for speaking truth through comedy labeled Katt a troublemaker. Why? Because he didn't have a billion-dollar platform protecting him. He didn't play safe. He didn't water it down. Every joke about race, fame, money, and the system came from real scars. And the deeper he went, the more uncomfortable Hollywood became. Because laughter is dangerous when it makes people think. And Katt Williams had mastered that danger. But with every truth he told, the backlash grew stronger. And soon, it wasn't just his career on the line. It was his peace of mind.
Well, 4 caught up with Williams as he was ejected from a South Lake Union hotel around 7 p.m. On Sunday, Williams was arrested after an altercation at a nearby restaurant. Police say he argued with customers and threatened them.
That right there was one of the realest things Katt ever said. He didn't regret speaking. He regretted believing that honesty would protect him. Because in Hollywood, honesty is treated like a weapon. The moment you use it, they turn it back on you. The industry didn't just want his talent, they wanted his silence. But Katt's mistake was thinking he could still play the game with integrity. That's like bringing truth to a gunfight. Every word he spoke after that became evidence. Every confession turned into ammunition. And instead of protecting him, his transparency made him a target. But here's the thing. Real ones always recognize real. Even as the media tore him down, fans started to see the pattern. They saw the setup. And slowly, the narrative began to shift. Because people were starting to realize, maybe Katt Williams wasn't crazy at all. Maybe he was the only one telling the truth. That one line, "I'm free," hit harder than any punchline. Because in that moment, it wasn't a comedian talking. It was a man who had survived every trap the industry laid out, and still had the courage to laugh in its face. The world laughed when he fell. They shared the memes, replayed the fights, mocked the meltdowns. But nobody stopped to ask why the man who once made millions laugh couldn't smile anymore. They called it a downfall, but maybe it was a withdrawal. A refusal to keep pretending for an audience that only loves you when you're performing pain. And if you listen close, you can hear the difference. One was a man trying to prove himself to the world. The other was a man who realized the world never deserved him. This wasn't the story of a comedian losing his mind. It was the story of a genius finding peace in a world that mistakes peace for madness.
I'm just going to go ahead and announce my retirement from stand-up. I'm kind of done.
And just like that, the full circle moment arrived. The man who once weaponized comedy to survive now uses it to heal, not to prove anything, not to fight anyone, just to remind people that even broken souls can still bring light. Katt Williams may never be the Hollywood golden boy. He may never get the corporate awards, the clean headlines, the fake applause, but he has something far rarer, peace of mind. And when the lights go down and the crowd fades away, that's what remains. A boy who walked out of his house at 13 and turned his pain into laughter for the world. So if you ever hear someone say Katt Williams fell off, just remember, some people fall out of the system so they can finally stand in their truth.
And I needed you to know why I came by.
Yeah, I need you to tell us why.
People know I don't go everywhere. I'm not interested in talking to people unless it's like a Larry King or somebody of an amazing ilk that I would actually want to go talk to.
That line, just understanding. Maybe that's all Katt Williams ever wanted. Not fame, not sympathy, just the space to be human in an industry that profits from breaking humans. Because behind every punchline, there's a scar. Behind every laugh, there's a lifetime of lessons. And behind that microphone, there's a man who never stopped fighting for his mind. He taught us that comedy isn't always funny. Sometimes it's survival. And the real joke is that the same pain the world laughed at is what made him unforgettable. The tragedy of Katt Williams isn't that he broke down. It's that he kept standing up, even when the world laughed at his fall. It's easy to look at Katt Williams now, confident, sharp-tongued, unapologetic, and forget how much pain sits beneath that smile. Because for him, comedy wasn't just about laughter, it was survival. Every punchline was a shield, every standing ovation was a reminder that he still mattered, even when the world tried to erase him. But the truth, fame, didn't save Katt Williams. It tested him. When he finally reached the top, when Hollywood started to notice that this wild, gold-haired comedian was actually a genius, that's when everything around him started falling apart. The arrests, the breakdowns, the strange public moments, they weren't random. They were the symptoms of a man who'd been carrying the weight of too many betrayals for too long. See, Katt wasn't like the other Hollywood comedians. He didn't play the game. He didn't flatter the powerful. He told the truth about race, about corruption, about the system. And Hollywood doesn't forgive truth-tellers. So they painted him as unstable. They made sure every headline focused on his meltdowns, never on his message. Because if Katt Williams was right, then Hollywood would have to admit that the system itself was the joke, and not a funny one. And through all of it, he stayed real. Even when his peers distanced themselves, even when the money dried up, even when he could have sold out for comfort, he didn't. He chose pain over pretending, and that's rare, because when you've been beaten down by life the way Katt has, pretending is easy. But Katt Williams never wanted easy. He wanted real. He once said, "They can't cancel me. I was never invited. And that's the difference. He wasn't looking for a seat at their table. He built his own stage. Even when Hollywood stopped calling, the people never did. His fans kept showing up. His words kept resonating. Because he wasn't performing for fame, he was performing for healing. But the saddest part? Behind all the laughter, there's a loneliness that never left him. A man who gave the world so much joy, yet struggled to find peace in his own life. And as time went on, that pain started showing. Not in his jokes, but in his eyes, the exhaustion, the quiet pauses between punchlines. It wasn't just a man telling jokes anymore. It was a survivor telling the truth. Katt Williams didn't just entertain America, he exposed it. He made us laugh at the very things we were too scared to talk about: power, hypocrisy, the illusion of success. And for that, he paid the price. But even now, at 54, he's still standing, still speaking, still unafraid to burn every bridge if it means keeping his soul intact. Because if there's one thing Katt taught us, it's this: you can lose the fame, the fortune, the friends, but if you never lose yourself, you've already won. But the truth about Katt Williams is that he never stopped being who he was, even when the world begged him to change. He never softened his words for comfort, never watered down his truth to fit into their idea of success, because what they called rebellion was really resilience, and what they labeled as chaos was just a man refusing to be controlled. You see, Katt never asked for sympathy. He asked for understanding. He wanted people to look past the headlines, past the mugshots, past the memes, and see the human being who survived what most people wouldn't even recover from. At 54, he's not chasing relevance. He is relevance. He doesn't need to trend. He's already timeless. Because legends aren't made from comfort. They're forged in pain, pressure, and perseverance. And that's exactly what Katt Williams became. Proof that you can be broken and still brilliant. That you can lose everything and still come back louder, funnier, wiser, and more fearless than before. He's the kind of artist you don't fully appreciate until years later, when the laughter fades and the truth he spoke starts echoing louder than ever. And one day, people will realize that behind every wild story, every viral clip, and every controversy was a man who carried the soul of a poet, the pain of an outcast, and the courage of a fighter. Maybe that's why Katt Williams never begged for love, because deep down, he already knew that real love can't be bought, hyped, or faked. It's earned in the trenches of honesty. And for those who've been misunderstood, betrayed, or underestimated, Katt's story is a mirror. It tells you that no matter how dark it gets, you can still stand tall, still speak truth, and still smile through the scars. So yeah, maybe the world broke Katt Williams a few times, but it never broke his spirit. And in a world that rewards silence, Katt chose to stay loud, even when it cost him everything. Because some people are born to make you laugh, and others, like Katt Williams, are born to make you think. And when a man like that speaks, even through pain, you listen, you feel it, because it's not comedy anymore. It's truth, disguised as laughter. And that's what makes Katt Williams unforgettable. So if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or underestimated, remember Katt's story. He's living proof that your struggle doesn't disqualify you. It defines you. And no matter what they take from you, your light can still shine. Because in the end, Katt Williams didn't just survive Hollywood, he outlived its lies. And somehow, through all the madness, he reminded us that the realest people rarely get the credit they deserve. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more juicy celebrity chaos, betrayals, and stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know. See you in the next one.